Hello and welcome to Unincarcerated, the podcast. I'm Cameron Collins. You might be asking yourself right about now, what does it mean to be unincarcerated? Well, at Unincarcerated Productions, the belief is that it means to be liberated from imprisonment of any form and empowered to realize one's highest potential. The reason I'm here with you today is that this podcast seeks to carry out the mission of Unincarcerated Productions. It seeks to help shift the collective consciousness from intolerance to redemption by humanizing the unincarcerated, and we plan on elevating storytelling, amplifying unincarcerated voices, and helping to shape the narrative and public perception around those who have been previously incarcerated. 95% of incarcerated humans return to society after serving their sentence. 100% experience some form of discrimination due to their record. And this is why Unincarcerated Productions exists. On Season 1 of Unincarcerated, the podcast, we are going to sit down with each member of the Unincarcerated team and learn about what brought them to being part of Unincarcerated Productions and where they see Unincarcerated going. On Season 2, we will begin elevating the stories of others and talking to them about what they've been through and where they are now. This is Unincarcerated, the podcast, Season 1. On Episode 1, we sit down with the founders of Unincarcerated, Vic Chopra and Spencer Oberg. Both Vic and Spencer have been previously incarcerated, and the seeds for what Unincarcerated Productions has become started while they were both in prison. Today, they are both out in the world, successful individuals, and they want to begin sharing the stories of others who are also successful. This is our conversation with Vic and Spencer. Hey guys, how you doing today?
Hey, Cameron. We're good. Doing fantastic, man. Excited to be here.
So, what exactly is Unincarcerated?
Unincarcerated is so many things, but when you really get down to it, Unincarcerated is all about shifting the societal paradigm and breaking down the stereotypes that people so often hold about those who are really imprisoned. It started out as imprisoned in prisons or have had that experience before, have a felony on their record, but it's gone even deeper than that because we realized that incarceration really begins in the mind. So Unincarcerated is about freeing people from bondage in every way, and really freeing them from bondage of their minds and of their surroundings, of their relationships. And we think that it really needs to start in the collective consciousness of our society. So that's what Unincarcerated, and specifically Unincarcerated Productions. Unincarcerated is a big company. We got a lot of, well, it's not huge yet in terms of people, but there's a lot of stuff under the umbrella of Unincarcerated that we're working on, that we have a vision for. But the Unincarcerated Productions piece of it, which I think is really what we're talking about here, because the podcast is part of that, is about using media in the form of audio, visual, TV, film, to enlighten people, to help them let go of their stereotypes and to give them that light bulb aha moment when they're confronted with the true, real, raw, entertaining stories of people who have experienced prison and are, maybe some are struggling or maybe some have struggled, but ultimately most of us are kicking ass. And that's what we want to show people, because anytime they encounter that, anytime they encounter us, their minds are blown. And we want to do that on a big scale.
What about for you, Vic? What is it and what does it mean to you?
For me, it truly is providing that spark of transformation and a shift in perception, right? Spencer and I, for those that don't know our stories, I mean, both of us are formerly incarcerated, right? So both of us did several years in the Washington State prison system. And for me, coming into it, I had so many preconceived notions about what a convict was, what a felon was, what somebody with a criminal record was, until I became that person, right? And then experiencing that system for myself and using it to better myself and to get sober, to rebuild myself. And I met other like-minded people like me in there. And I realized that this perception that I had was totally skewed. And, I really wanted to come out of this, better, stronger, and equipped to be able to tell my story and also the stories of others, because I realized that, society as a whole has these stereotypes and has these judgments on people that have a criminal record. And I really wanted to show the other side of that. So So having that spark of transformation for me personally, and then being able to impart that on others as well. And also to give back to my brothers and sisters that are also still incarcerated or that get out, and to be able to provide that spark of transformation for them as well, so they can realize their highest potential.
And the opportunity to realize that highest potential.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, I love it when we get to do something together, because it's like, the part of what's important to me that I miss, you hit on. And I totally agree.
And vice versa. So,
right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with everything you just said. I mean, even me, and you guys will hear more about my story as the podcast, as the episodes continue. But my story is a little bit different from Vic's. I had been exposed to the prison system before. I'd been in and out of jail a couple times, into prison once before, and I still had this stereotype, this preconceived notion of who people in there were. Like, I wasn't going in there to look for friends. I was going in there to change my life, and I thought that meant I wasn't talking to anybody.
Yep.
But I met some of the most incredible people who are still my dear friends and business partners.
Yeah.
Like Vic. Now to this day, and providing the opportunity for those amazing people when they get out to realize their highest potential by breaking down the barriers that people put in their way just because of their prejudice.
Yeah. And also, I mean, they set their own limits for themselves too, based on the information that they're provided, which is really false. I'm really lucky that I had, my bachelor's degree, and I had a career in media before addiction took over my life. And I ultimately ended up being incarcerated. So I knew what the other side of life, quote unquote, looks like. Right. But so many of these men and women don't even have an understanding or can even grasp the levels of success that they can achieve, even with a criminal record and having been through this experience. Right. So it was like, okay, well, I know what life can actually be like because I have experienced it and I had lost it. And now in my process of gaining that back and so much more, I wanted to share that knowledge with others as well, to say, hey, look, like, this doesn't have to be a limiting factor in your life. Yes, it's an obstacle, but man, let's fucking take that obstacle down. You know what I mean? That's a challenge. Like, let's go for it, and let's show everybody what we actually can accomplish.
100%. You're talking about me right there. I mean, I've found that my biggest obstacle since getting out was myself.
Same, 100%.
I get in my own way more than society does. And although there are those barriers that you're talking about that we still have to break down or climb over, the biggest one, the first one, is in the mind.
100%. And going off of that too, I mean, it ultimately, Spencer speaking my language and my experience as well, because anytime somebody talks about, the limits that are put on you because of your criminal record, I laugh, because that's not even a factor for me at all. I've never even, it maybe in the beginning a little bit, but once I felt more comfortable within myself and just the transformation that happened for me and realizing what I would be able to accomplish, those, I guess, stereotypical barriers that people think being a felon comes with, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't get a regular job, you can't travel, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not even a factor for me, because I know that those can be overcome. What it really boils down to for me, like Spencer said, is the limits that I set for myself as well. Because it all comes from, this fact of, like, being imprisoned by your own thoughts, right? And it's breaking through that has been actually the real challenge, I think, for both of us.
100%, man. I still work on it every day.
So you're almost saying that people need to unincarcerate their minds.
I think that's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's where unincarceration, that's where, becoming truly free, that's where it begins and ends, frankly. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that manifests in our outer world based on that needs to be dealt with too. But if you don't start there and really have that the ultimate goal, then all the other shit doesn't even matter.
No, not, I mean, because you're just setting yourself up for failure if you don't start with yourself and start with those, limiting beliefs that you put upon yourself, because ultimately those are what is going to hold you back. It's not these external factors, because those can be overcome. Both Spencer and I have overcome them ourselves and are doing so every day. It ultimately boils down to, like, what goals can you set for yourself and how much belief do you have in yourself that you can achieve them?
That being said, there obviously is a stigma out there towards people who have been incarcerated. What role do you think Unincarcerated Productions and Unincarcerated, the whole entire company in general, can play in changing that stigma?
I mean, there's so much power when it comes to media and to storytelling and representation. And that's where we're starting first. I always liken it to, I myself am a gay man. So being part of the LGBTQ plus community, I see these parallels between, the gay rights movement, and also now for, like, quote unquote, the unincarcerated rights movement, right? If you want to say that, or the unincarcerated movement, but go follow along with me really quick. But it's like, you see the stigma that's been associated with, being gay in this country. And then it's really boiled down to storytelling and representation in the media. I mean, starting, with Ellen coming out, and then Will and Grace, and then you wouldn't have shows like Queer as Folk or Queer Eye. And I mean, those have really brought, representation for our community on a large national scale. And then you can see the acceptance levels go up in this country, right? And so there's really a lot of power when it comes to media and to storytelling. So by focusing on stories of those that are unincarcerated, that, telling our true raw stories, and showing the national stage and the worldwide stage that, hey, just because somebody has made mistakes or has a criminal record, that does not define who we are. And we can actually come out of this experience better and break down those barriers and break down those stereotypes. And I know for me too, like, just being brown, being gay, seeing myself represented on screen, it's empowering. It's empowering on so many levels. So there is a power when it comes to that. And that's really, I think the first step in our kind of large scale plan is storytelling.
100%. And I think for me, when you see yourself represented on screen, or when you see yourself represented by somebody or by a group of people that you look up to, or that you think is empowered in some way in society, that in and of itself will break down internal barriers. For me, it was people coming in while I was in prison who had walked down my path before and were doing exactly what I wanted to do, right? My business partner, and who's actually a part of Unincarcerated as well, David Israel, was one of those people. There were a few, right? I wanted to be a successful businessman. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to take my hustle that I'd been using in the wrong way my whole life and transform it into something that was really positive and empowering for myself, and a positive impact on other people in society. But I didn't think I could do that. Couldn't even conceive of how I could do it until I saw myself represented in someone who had gone there before and done it, and get told that you can do this shit too.
For me too. I mean, I was pretty motivated and had a fire lit under my ass to become a filmmaker and to start a production company and to be a writer and to do all these things that had sort of fallen by the wayside for my addiction before I became incarcerated. So I knew that I wanted to do those things, and I knew that I could, but there was still this kind of, there was a doubt there, right? Because of everything I had heard before me. And it took hearing stories of others that had walked the same path to just reinforce that belief in myself that, yeah, you can do this. Others have done it before you. I remember I saw on CNN, I saw this news piece on Cos Marte, who started Conbody. And he was a graduate of Defy Ventures, an organization that actually both Spencer and I have been involved with as well. But that's another story. But I saw this piece on Cos Marte, who was formerly incarcerated, had graduated from Defy Ventures program, and had gotten a microloan to start a gym in New York City called Conbody. And it was just showcasing his success after, coming out of prison. And I remember seeing this on CNN, and I was like, wow. And I wrote it down actually in my journal. I wrote down Conbody and Defy Ventures. And that was just so uplifting and inspiring for me to be like, okay, everything you're thinking in your mind, just keep going with it, because there's others out there that are doing it, and you can do it too. And then ironically, after the fact, I had actually had an opportunity to go inside Monroe Prison and film the Washington State Defy Ventures chapter's graduation, where Cos Marte was actually the keynote speaker. And then I actually filmed a demo workout of his Conbody workout at a gym with him after the fact. So
that we
both participated in, and it really came full circle for me, like seeing this piece on CNN and then actually getting out, filming this organization, and then meeting Cos and getting to film a Conbody workout. I mean, it was kind of insane. It's pretty much manifestation come true there.
Absolutely. It's really amazing how things come full circle. And you're talking about Cos, right? Mm-hmm. I hadn't heard about Cos before that Defy Ventures graduation that you and I were both at. But it was really inspiring to hear him tell some of his story while he was there, and then get to know him a little bit afterwards, then get my fucking ass kicked.
Both of us got our ass kicked by him. Yeah, it was
by that workout.
Brutal.
Brutal. I thought I was in pretty good shape, but
yeah, ouch.
And then when I was in New York a few months later, maybe not even that long, God, time is completely blurred now, especially with this whole COVID thing. But a little while after our meeting here in Seattle, I was on his turf. I was in New York City and had the opportunity to go hang out with him there, see his gym. I didn't go do another workout because the memory of the first one was still too fresh.
Oh, you didn't do a workout? I thought you went and did a workout. Oh,
no.
I'm so disappointed in you.
I know. See, I totally would have done it, except for the only option he gave me was 5 a.m. And I had a full day of trade show after that. And I couldn't do it.
I don't know if I could do that. Yeah.
I wimped out. But it was awesome just to come full circle to see people who inspire you, whose stories inspire you, and to know, because we've walked it, to know where they came from. It's inspiring. And I don't recognize that in myself, but people tell me that about me. I recognize it in you, though. I recognize it in David or in Kaz. And I think that's why it's so important to tell the stories, because even if somebody's doing well when they get out of prison, sometimes they don't have the presence of mind to see it all the time.
And Spencer and I have to remind each other of that with each other.
Yeah.
That's something that, sometimes we'll just text each other and just be like, hey bro, like, I'm really proud of you. You're kicking ass. And it's like, thank you. Cause it's hard for us to,
it's like, hey, you're right.
Yeah. You're like, it's hard for us to see it sometimes. We've been, grinding at getting Unincarcerated off the ground for 2 years now, just over 2 years. And we're finally making headway and making traction and things are moving. But it's been an uphill climb and slow moving, but we've always been making progress. I don't think we haven't gone backwards in any way, which is fantastic. And everything happens for a reason in the way that it should. But sometimes I think we both can feel that we're not doing enough, or just, we're both hustlers. And so we both, I think, have this, it's a term. I mean, we are really hard on ourselves, right?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, we're really hard on ourselves.
We're our own worst critic.
Exactly. 100%. And I think, we're great sounding boards off of each other to just give ourselves some grace and compassion, and also like a pat on the fucking back to say, you know what, like we're doing pretty well right now. And
there's no such thing as perfection, right? I mean, that's part of the human, part of the human condition. It's part of the journey. It's all about progress and recognize it. I mean, for me, I'm like we just said, I'm my own worst critic, and I always feel like I can be doing more, and I don't recognize the positive things as easily and readily as I recognize the times when I fuck up. And I think that's kind of a human thing. Most people do that.
The same way.
So it's helpful, especially for people who are marginalized in some way, and in this case, unincarcerated or previously incarcerated or ex-cons or whatever term you want to throw at it. Anybody who's had that experience with the justice system, that can get reinforced by society's mores. Is that what you call it? Mores and values, whatever. By society's.
Just say by society.
Just by society in general. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That gets reinforced by society in subtle ways and sometimes not so subtle ways. So it's really helpful to have somebody tell you, and maybe sometimes even get in your face a little bit and say, hey, pardon my language, if you can't already tell, sometimes I have a little bit of a sailor's mouth. Fuck that. You're doing excellent. Who cares if you stumbled yesterday? Get back up and keep kicking ass.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's inspiring even to me on the other side of the screen right here.
I love it.
So we've kind of delved headfirst into what Unincarcerated strives to do, but we didn't talk about the origins of it. How did you two meet, and what exactly was it that drew you together? I mean, you can tell that there's a chemistry between you two, and you kind of riff back and forth off one another, and seem to be a good match just by watching you two interact. But what was it that made you decide, or how did you meet, and what was it that made you decide that you wanted to work together?
So Spencer and I both met at Reynolds Work Release here in Seattle. So when you have 6 months to the gate, or 6 months to your release date here in the Washington State prison system, you can get approved to go to work release, which is essentially it's almost like a halfway house. So you leave prison, you go to the work release, you can get a real job, you go out on passes every day. So you can start, it's like a graduated step program back into real life, right? So you get a real job, start making money, putting it away. You can see your friends and family on a more regular basis. Like you can leave on these things called socials where you can be out for essentially 8 to 10 hours for the day with your family or your friends and leave and go experience life. So it comes with a whole set of rules and regulations that are super strict. And I mean, I'm getting nerve wracked just thinking about it.
Me too.
Yeah.
You're stressing me out, man. I mean, that was probably one of the most stressful parts of my time.
It was probably the most stressful part of my time as well. I mean, also, I think it's the most freedom that you can have while in prison, but also it was the most stressed out because every day you just have these thoughts in your head that like, oh my God, if I fuck up or if I do something wrong, they can send me back.
Or even if I don't fuck up, even if I don't mean to, like you have to pee in a cup on command. You have to take a UA whenever they tell you to.
Within an hour. So they can literally call you and say, okay, UA time. And they sit you in a chair down in the lobby and right in front of the front desk. And you just sit there until your bodily function tells you that, yes, you have to pee. And you have an hour. That's it. And you literally can watch the clock tick down in front of you. It's the most nerve-wracking thing ever. So I literally started carrying around a 24-ounce Contigo with me everywhere I went and would always make sure that I always could pee just because of that.
100%. Me too. I started having to go like an old man. Drank so much water.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
I'd always make sure that by the time I reached the front door, whether I was coming back from work or anything, that I always was busting at the seams having to pee. So I wouldn't even have to deal with the stress of that. Or like if I had to pee really bad, I would just like go halfway. I would just empty half the tank and then leave a little reserve.
That's
you know what I mean?
Though.
So I'm not even like it's funny, but I'm not even kidding. Like it literally gave me so many, God, what's the term I'm looking for? Just neuroses around urination. I literally am dealing with them to this day.
It seems like
you can tell Vic has some PTSD from that.
I do.
It seems like it would have
PTSD.
It seems like there would be some just added heightened neuroses around it just because you're so close to release and you've done your time. And so you're like this close. And then if one thing just goes wrong, suddenly it's all out the window.
Oh, 100%. So that's always hanging over your head every day. So besides that fact, though, okay, moving on. So Spencer and I met at Reynolds work release, right? So he got there probably, I think, 2 or 3 weeks after I had arrived. And I think it took us maybe a week or two to get introduced to each other. Our mutual friend, Ryan, introduced us, I think on the wait deck or in the lobby or something.
Yeah.
And Ryan knew both of us. I mean, I just met Ryan at work release as well, but we had developed a rapport and he was an intelligent guy and somebody that I started to open myself up to because you have to keep somewhat of a guard up when you're incarcerated with who you choose to spend your time with. At least that's how Spencer and I did our time. Because there are a few knuckleheads, not just a few, but there are many knuckleheads in there, right? So Ryan introduced us. And immediately after talking to Spencer for like 5 minutes, I was like, okay, like this is my kind of dude. Totally like-minded. He was really intelligent, well-spoken. He worked out like me. So I was like, okay, like we can hang out, work out together, get to know each other. And that's sort of how the relationship started.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, Ryan, I guess, was kind of a business matchmaker, because he and I did quite a bit of time together at the minimum security, what they call camp, facility in Monroe. And during that time is when the genesis for Unincarcerated, I guess my vision of Unincarcerated started. And that was when David mentioned something about doing a TV show in prison, and we came up with this Shark Tank in prison idea. And we tried to get that damn thing filmed while I was in there. You know, it was a little challenging to try to lead that kind of initiative from inside, and ultimately unfruitful. But that's where it began for me. And so Ryan heard all about it, right? He and I were in Toastmasters together, and you have a relatively tight-knit group of close friends that you share these kind of things with, because, you know, like Vic said, you gotta be a little choosy. Not everybody in there is like us, but there are a lot who are. You just have to find them. And he was one of them. So he had heard all about it. and knew that about me. And then when he got to know Vic a little bit, knew his background, it was like, hey, you guys, you're interested in the same stuff. You're both kicking ass on the same path. You should chat. And we did.
Yeah. Cause I remember I had spoken to Ryan about my media background, having worked for local PBS station, and that I had, been in the process of writing a screenplay and was planning on, being a filmmaker when I got out. I had a documentary feature that I wanted to produce at the time that we're working on currently. So Ryan knew my film projects that I had sort of in the pipeline, knew Spencer, and then that's how the match was sort of made. And it was funny too, because, Spencer and I started to get to know each other. We started going to AA together every Sunday morning. So we would walk there and walk back, work out together when we could, because we both were really busy with work as well, and going out on socials and whatnot. But we would find time to spend with each other and tell each other about, what was going on with each other's jobs, and talk to each other about these media plans, right? Because Spencer was working with the LSJ school at UW as well. Was speaking at their classes and was thinking of doing this docuseries of post-incarceration stories. And ironically, that's something that I had in the back of my mind as well, something I had sort of started formulating when I was still at Walla Walla at the Washington State Penitentiary, because I really wanted to tell my story. And I even talked to my counselor there about, would there be a possibility of coming back into Walla Walla with cameras and filming in there, blah, blah, blah. So I had a docuseries in the back of my head, a documentary feature film. Spencer started telling me about his projects, the Shark Tank and Prison Idea, and then this docuseries as well. And we both at first were just like, oh yeah, just keep me posted on that. Like, let me know how what's going on with that. And yeah, same, let me know. And both of us in the back of our minds were like, I wonder if he'd want to work on it with me. But then none of us said anything for a while. And then I remember you and I were sitting in the lobby in the foyer, I think before dinner or something.
We were waiting for something.
And I was finally just like, I think it was me. I think I was the one that was finally just like, do you want to work on this with me or something?
And I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to. You want to work on mine with me?
And I was like, yes.
It was like awkward elementary school dating or something.
Yeah. It's like, do you like me? I kind of like you. I passed him a note that said, will you be my business partner? Yes or no? So that, ultimately that it just took finally one of us to break the ice. I think it was me, but I don't know for sure that I was. And then we both were like, yes.
I'll let you have that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm happy you did it.
Yeah. So, and then that's when we were like, okay, let's fucking do this. Let's form this production company and let's make this shit happen.
So you two meet, you decide you want to work together. How do you come up with the name Unincarcerated? Because this is something that I think has become central to the entire company, and the entire vision of the company is that name. And maybe it goes a completely different direction if you don't have that name. So where did the name come from? What made you decide to run with it? And tell the details.
Well, that was a process.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. We had the name, which we're not even going with anymore, of our docuseries first. And that was an interesting conversation because I was like, genius idea. Why don't we call this docuseries Conversations? Ex-con, haha. And Spencer was like, fuck no. I was like, damn, I thought I was so witty. So that was a whole other conversation. And then we ultimately went with Breaking Free, which has now become the just Unincarcerated, the series. But we went back and forth on the company name for a while. We were playing around with these ideas of like Phoenix. The Phoenix is really, Rising Phoenix is really central to just personally, spiritually, like my comeback story. And it's always been figuratively in my mind. But everybody and their mom has taken that name for some business or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't something that we knew right out the gate, but it was something we knew we wanted to get right. And it had to embody our vision and our mission and just what we were trying to accomplish. And so like Vic said, we went back and forth with all kinds of stuff. Shit that, thank God, I probably can't even remember all of it.
Yeah.
I'm curious now, though. I kind of want to go back on those email and text threads and see all the different iterations that we came up with. And I can't even remember how long it was, but it was probably a good couple of months or more.
For sure.
That we went back and forth trying to nail this down. And believe it or not, one day, I'm pretty sure it was when I was getting ready for work in the morning. I was in the bathroom, just got done shaving, brushing my teeth, all that stuff. And then I just like stopped and looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, that's it. Unincarcerated.
And he texted it to me and I'm like, yep, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We just knew.
It was just, yeah. There wasn't even a, ooh, maybe, or I go, nope, that's it.
Yeah. We knew as soon as we hit on it. Like I was confident if he would have came back and told me fuck no, then I definitely would have taken a step back and reevaluated. But it felt so natural to me. And as soon as he texted back, yep, yeah, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, it's always been. The only thing that was in question after that was whether we put a hyphen
before the and the incarcerated, which initially he did.
Yeah. I filed the LLC docs with that and hated it for the next year and a half.
Yeah, I was like, no hyphen. And it's funny too, because there have been a few people that I've spoken to that pushed back on the name in different industries or whatnot. And we've held fast to it because we both believe in that. You know, some people I'm involved in a couple of other industries in entertainment, beauty pageants for one, ironically. A few folks in there were really interested in the idea, but were giving me some advice and were like, you might want to consider changing that name because it can come across as, you know, this or that. And I go, no, we're not going to, I wholeheartedly believe in that name. And I believe it just embodies and encompasses so much of what we want to accomplish. And I just think it's a fucking badass name. So there, I don't care if it rubs certain people the wrong way. I think that's maybe a little bit
that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
We don't want it to, the point, I guess it's not the point to rub people the wrong way, but it is to be clear about what we're doing. And I got to tell you, man, it's good to know that it makes me feel good to know that you're that confident in it. Cause you never even mentioned that.
No, because I didn't feel there was a need to. I mean, this person's an amazing human being and I love them to death. And, it was just like, oh, you might want to consider that. So it wasn't anything negative, but in my mind, I was like, no, this is who we are. And
like,
we're not,
thanks, no thanks.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to shy away from it. It's like, let's call a spade a spade. This is who we are. This is our background and this is our mission. And I'm never going to shy away from that 100,000%. That's just not who we are.
And I have to say that attitude and that conviction, no pun intended, that conviction bears itself out every time we share our stories.
We got Cameron on that one. I thought he was like, I can't hold it together.
Yeah, that was corny, but hey, leave it there. Why not?
Interesting conversation about convictions.
Seriously though,
yeah,
that conviction about telling our story and telling it real, not sugarcoating it, not trying to dramatize or play off of the prison mystique or whatever that some people in society are addicted to, and that things like, sorry if you're listening to this and you like it, but Lock Up Raw, for example, that tells a small piece of the story, but it dramatizes and really exploits people for ratings. And we don't need to do that. Every time we share our stories, every time we share other people's stories in the way that we do, it's always a benefit. It's always a benefit. It always blows people's minds in a good way, and always creates more opportunity
and opens eyes and starts conversations as well.
100%. Right. I mean, it's I just think it's so important to be authentic, and Unincarcerated is authentically who we are.
Obviously, producing content that isn't exploitative is really important to Unincarcerated. What kind of content have you already started working on, and what content do you plan on having moving forward?
Initially, when we were both released, because we were released within a month of each other, we started filming interviews for this concept of this docuseries, post-incarceration stories, chronicling the lives of those that have done time have now been out and are working to rebuild their lives. And this is something that's been ongoing, and we're getting closer and closer to putting together the first episode of this, which ultimately is starting with Spencer and mine's story, because we haven't even really scratched the surface of telling it the way we want to for this series. So we filmed some initial interviews in May of 2018, and then we're filming each other here and there over the next year, along with some other interviews with recently released individuals. And that has been the process of creating this docuseries, which we're now calling Unincarcerated. So I was going to work on compiling all of that footage into a first episode / pilot for the docuseries. We just had a little bit more, essentially some scenes to film, and then COVID hit. So it basically threw a wrench in everything.
Yeah, things got a little sideways. Pretty much everybody since COVID has happened. In COVID era, reality, I guess, the entire world, everybody I talk to can sum it up as what the fuck happened. And, we had to pivot. We definitely had to pivot, but we did.
Yeah. So, it didn't stop us from continuing the work and to stay focused on our two main productions, which were the docuseries and then this feature-length documentary film that we've been working on that we can get into. But what we did end up doing to make use of the time of being on lockdown was we came up with this idea of doing interviews with formerly incarcerated individuals and looking towards them as thought leaders during a time of lockdown, because who better to give advice and tips and, survival tips to individuals than people that have, been in the hole or, been in solitary or just been incarcerated in general. So that's where this idea of this short little series we called The Incarceration of America came about. And we just filmed it on Zoom. They were just interviews we did on Zoom, like we're doing right now, a little bit, lesser scale than even what we're doing right now. And we filmed those. And then we just created these little short vignettes that we released on YouTube, and we put out 6, and I'm a little bit behind, but we have 3 more interviews that we filmed that we get to put out. And yeah, so it was a nice little pivot for us to, that was actually the first thing that the first quote unquote production for Unincarcerated Productions that we were able to put out to the world. And we're pretty proud of it.
Yeah, it's all about, that's where the entrepreneurial spirit comes in, right? It's about pivoting. That's a very cliche and overused term, but I think it's really appropriate. When there's a challenge in your way, when there's an obstacle, you either figure out how to grow to overcome it or how you need to shift direction to get around it. And I think that's honestly, that's one of the big strengths that prison taught me personally is you can't control everything. We can't control.
Wait, we can't.
Oh shit, man. I guess we got to go way back and start this all over, buddy. All right. So yes, Vic, unfortunately we can't control everything.
Damn.
And sometimes shit happens that the only thing we have control over is how we react to it and what we do in response to the situation. And obviously COVID is one of those things. As much as I hate it, the government and the powers that be have a lot of control over our lives, over what we can and can't do. And just the fear as a whole of this thing, everybody knows, I'm preaching to the choir. It brought everything to a grinding halt. And that's pretty tough for a production company that needs people in the same room so that we can get them on film.
To create a production.
Right.
So, yeah, so
but technology enabled us to put something out there.
Exactly.
Even though the quality drives Vic nuts.
Yeah. It is what it is. But I'm still very proud of the content that is in those vignettes for sure. It was just literally me pressing record on my laptop for a Zoom call, but that's doesn't really highlight my directorial skills. No, I'm really happy with the questions we asked and the content that we put out. And I'm actually really excited to get out the last 3 episodes because there are some really compelling interviews with some really, really awesome people. So, we're putting the rest of those episodes out. And now that things have opened back up a little bit, what's on the horizon for us is really, really exciting. We have managed to put together a budget for some really kick-ass professional equipment that we've been, hoping and wishing and praying for a while. So that should happen here, hopefully within the next month. And then we're going to continue with filming the rest of this first episode of the docuseries and getting that out, and then continue work on the feature-length documentary film, which we've been slowly in development on for a couple of years. And it's going to take a little bit longer, but slowly but surely we're piecing that together as well.
In addition to the docuseries that you all have been working on, Spencer, you also had that idea that you were working on while you were in prison. And I know that's something you've been trying to make a reality now that you're out. What has COVID done to that production?
Brought it to a screeching halt. Unfortunately, that's the short version of the story, because there isn't any kind of extracurricular programming, and even some of the main programming that goes on inside of prisons on a regular basis isn't happening right now, right? I mean, they're on modified lockdowns on a regular basis, restricted visitors. I don't even think family visits are going back on anymore. So they definitely aren't letting cameras in. That's a challenging feat, even when there isn't a pandemic going on for everyone to be concerned about. So the iteration of penitentiary deals, think of it as Shark Tank in prison, but with a focus more on people's stories of transformation and where they've been and where they're going. Since we can't do that inside, now it's about pivoting to see how we can really highlight people's lives when they get out. Obviously, Unincarcerated, the series, is a piece of that, but we're also looking at ways to follow people, and not only in their stories and their daily lives, but take a deep dive into that and follow them as they go through a transition house. This is something that is still kind of nebulous. We're not sure how deep we want to go in the venture itself. There's something on the table for us to perhaps even purchase a transition house ourselves and implement some of the programming, and I don't want to call it rehabilitative, because some people even haven't had one opportunity to habilitate themselves. So habilitative programming as people are coming back into society, and to capture that journey on film. And we're also exploring how we can take the same kind of concept of penitentiary deals and implement that on the outside. And Cos's story, Cos Marte, that Vic, the gentleman Vic mentioned earlier, he experienced something like this with a different chapter of Defy in a different state. I think it could work really well. So we're playing around with that as something that we want to do in the near future. Well, I guess we'll see how near it is with the whole COVID thing, because it still makes it challenging to get everybody in one room. But in the relatively near future, we're playing around with doing those two as well.
Now, we've been mainly talking about Unincarcerated Productions and the things that the production side of things are doing, but I know that the idea behind Unincarcerated is a lot bigger than that. And there's educational components potentially and other things. What do you envision as the grander idea of Unincarcerated beyond just the production side?
Wow. I think that's kind of limitless. However, there are some things that the team that's near and dear to various people's hearts on the team. Obviously, Vic and I have our visions for projects outside of the production house that are near and dear to us. But maybe now's a good time to bring up some of the people that we have on our team too, because that's one of the main driving forces behind, I think, why we're picking up so much momentum and what's going to make us successful. So Cameron, I think people probably figured out by now that you're in some way part of Unincarcerated. Cameron Collins is not only is he our counsel, but he's our podcast director and just an amazing champion of the cause, and an incredible pleasure to work with. We have Rachel. I'm sure you'll hear from her on this series. She's our COO and also extremely passionate about diversity and inclusion work and giving people the opportunity and the tools that they need to succeed. And Corey Pollard he's an industry vet. He's been in media for
over 30 years in LA.
Over 30 years. And he has a connection to actually Walla Walla, the prison that Vic went went through. He grew up in that town. And so it's, it's very interesting.
So did Rachel too, actually.
So did Rachel. Yeah. And there was somebody else. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Somehow Walla Walla keeps coming up in the way that we're all serendipitous.
My dad grew up in Waitsburg, right next to Walla Walla, and my uncle still lives there.
See what I mean?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So, and Corey, again, I mean, he's not only is he an industry vet, so it's fitting that he's part of a production company, but he's really passionate about the work and about shifting our society's paradigm and the way that we deal with quote unquote criminal justice. So I'm looking forward to you hearing from all these people. But I mean, I bring that up because not only do they deserve their due recognition, but because each one of us has our own, our own piece that we bring to the puzzle that will ultimately build Unincarcerated much broader than just a production company. And I don't want to say just a production company because that's a big feat in of itself.
Yeah. But, specifically, Rachel has tons of experience leading programs inside prison, Defy Ventures Washington being one of them. And she's done work in San Quentin. And that's actually a mission that Spencer and I have both volunteered with and have gone back and volunteered our time inside prison to be mentors to the men inside there. And Corey's done that as well. So actually creating in-prison curriculum is something that we definitely see as part of our future. That's just something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. And it's, we feel it's necessary, and we feel that we have the team and the resources to do it in a really impactful and successful way. So that's definitely something that's on the horizon for us.
Absolutely. And also transitional programming and support for people as they navigate their way out of prison and back into society. That's the biggest gap in the system right now. If that's, again, I'm going to dive down a rabbit hole if I go too far into this, but that's the whole foundation of our system being a little fucked up. Notwithstanding, I think the biggest gap currently in someone being successful is when you get out, if you don't have family, if you don't have friends, if you don't have resources set up and ready to go, when you walk out the door, you get $40 freaking. If you were able to scrape together any kind of savings from the 40 cents an hour that you make, if you're lucky to have a job when you're in prison, you got a tiny bit of money when you get out, and debt and no work history for however long, no credit history if you've been in for a while,
criminal record, the stigma, all of it.
Right. How in the hell are you supposed to be successful if you don't have support and resources and some guidance? So I think that's also a big piece of it too. Help not only creating the environment that enables somebody to really become a higher version or the highest version of themselves when they're in prison, but the support that they need to continue that when they get out.
As we're wrapping up the conversation here, what's something that you would like the listener to take away from this conversation, whether that's about your lives or the company or anything we've talked about today?
One thing about what we're doing with Unincarcerated, for me anyway, and I think it's really a big piece of our message, is everything happens and it's completely up to us what we make out of it. Prison for me, when I went into it, I thought, and everybody in my life told me, that it was probably the worst fucking thing, aside from dying, or maybe losing a really close loved one that could happen to me. But that's not what I turned it into. I turned it into the best thing that ever happened to me. And I think that that's true with everything that happens in life. We do have control over some things. There's a sphere of influence that we have around us, and we have some modicum of control over various aspects of our life. We can choose who we surround ourselves with. We can choose what we invest our time in. There are points of control that we have, but we only get to work with the cards that are dealt, and it's completely up to us how we play them. And it's all in how we play those cards that determines what we're able to accomplish, who we're able to become, who we're able to impact, what we're able to achieve. And I think Unincarcerated it's a testament to that as an organization, because of the life that it's taken on of its own and all the amazing people that we have involved in it, the traction that we're gaining. But it's going to be even more of a testament to that as we continue to build and to grow and to exert the control that we have over the things that happen to us, and turn all that into opportunities, into something that's amazing. COVID, I mean, for fuck's sakes, it's unprecedented in our generation, in several generations, and probably forever. I mean, I don't know of anything else that shut down the world at any given point in time. The COVID pandemic has. But we can choose to have that be the demise of our company and of our mission and our vision and the pursuit of the impact that we want to have, or we can use it as fuel to find a way to grow and become even better and have an even bigger impact than we would have before. And I believe that's exactly what we're doing. And as long as we keep meeting all the challenges that come our way with that attitude and that perspective, there's nothing that can stop us from changing the world. And we're no different than you. We are no different than you. Everybody has that power. I firmly believe that. And I guess if you haven't gotten it out of the little snippets of our stories that you've heard so far, or out of the conversation before this, and that's what I want you to take away, is that you do what you want to do.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Cameron, is that, like, if you're listening to this, I want everybody to take away from this that these are universal stories. Like, our stories are universal. They are not just prison stories, or they're not just this or that. You know, what we've experienced is ultimately human experience. And, you know, we've gained knowledge and transformation and a more profound understanding of ourselves. And I think that's universal. So I would just encourage everybody, if you're just hearing a snippet of this, or this is the only part, you know, or you're just hearing, oh, these are just prison stories, what does that have to do with me? Or I don't know if I'm interested in that. Like, no, I would just encourage you to open your heart, open your mind, and take a listen and come on this journey with us. Because, you know, I had, like I said, my preconceived notions, or, you know, thinking I was different, or thinking these people were different than me. And after having gone through this experience, I've realized that this, you know, we're all just humans in this crazy human experiment, right? And I just invite everybody to, like I said, come on this journey with us, listen to the stories that we're going to tell, because you can gain so much knowledge and insight and understanding, and ultimately empathy and gratitude, which I think are the two touchstones of what it means to be, you know, a person, a soul on this planet.
It's a perfect realization to come away from this with. And it's like, when we first started, I was talking about how unincarceration begins and ends in the mind. It's not, yes, our experience involves prison. The stories that we tell involves people who have been in prison, who are in prison. However, one of the hallmarks of so many of the conversations that I've had with people after sharing my story is the level of connection that we have, even though they'd never stepped foot in a prison. And I think you may hear some of this when you listen to Corey's episode, or you may not. If you don't, I can tell you firsthand that one of the things that he and I connected on so quickly is that he was just like, you know, holy shit. If the way he phrased it is, if but for the grace of God, you know, there go I could have been right there with you. I was just lucky enough to get away with everything. I think the vast majority of us assume that other people don't have problems. Other people have never fucked up. They've never made a mistake. That's not true. We're all humans. And I mean, if you're listening to this and you haven't, and you really are a saint, then I mean, my hat's off to you.
And I want your number.
Or I call bullshit. You know, I think there are some very, very few number of people who've lived truly exemplary and you know, above reproach lives. But for the most part, that's just bullshit. If you act like your shit don't stink, then you're hiding something. And you should let it go, because that's how we really connect.
Yeah.
Right. We connect on these stories on this human level. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's really important for people to understand.
We all have experienced prisons in some way or another, whether it's a physical prison or it's a prison of our own mind. So like I said, it's universal. Unincarcerate your mind. Come with us.
Unincarcerated, the podcast, is a joint production of Unincarcerated Productions and Grindle Industries. All of the music on today's episode, including what you're listening to now, is from the artist Speculation. You can learn more about Spec at speculation.bandcamp.com. That's SPEKULATION.bandcamp.com. We will see you all next time.